So, anyone who's aware and is capable of being honest with themselves and has a desire to know what the truth is will have most likely come to the conclusion that there's really nothing to do in this life. That this experience is void of any real objective meaning or purpose. And even within the subjective realm, finding any kind of real point to anything that can be done by an individual, it's really, when probed enough, not find much the same. That there's just this overriding sense of hollowness and futility. And so, even within hobbies or passions, which falls under the umbrella of the subjective realm, typically things one would engage in to find meaning or significance within one's life, in spite of the existential nihilism that someone may arrive at least for myself, anyhow, I shall say that when finding myself, well, having found myself engaging in these hobbies and passions in the past, and analyzing my motivations for doing so, I found them to be quite impure or corrupt, perhaps. That ultimately they've sort of covertly been serving the purpose of fulfilling more base animal drives. So just validation, acceptance, social, climbing the social hierarchy, which of course the knock-on effect of all of which is ensuring or at least providing a greater chance of passing on my genetics, right? Perpetuating the human species, or just more broadly, life as a whole, which, of course, comes back to the objective futility, and you see what I'm getting at. And so, when we arrive at this complete hollowness and futility, one has to ask themselves the question, what is there really to do? And I guess I could, considering myself to be in such a position, I suppose my knee-jerk response would be to offer something of to the effect of the Rust Cole thing from True Detective, when asked why he continues living, and he just says that it's his programming to do so. And Yeah, I would say, for the most part, right, that is the case. And I mean, um, yeah, so that which does entail the self mortification inhibition, which is sort of intrinsic to all complex organisms to a degree, to a greater degree or another. Um, Basically, not wanting to end my own life because to do so is just so against this overall thrust to life, which we are, whether we like it or not, so so tethered to in such an integral way. Um, so us, we in such a position, we find ourselves sort of just wandering through without really any real sense at all of any overarching purpose or meaning. We just go through the motions of eating and shitting and pissing and breathing and exerting ourselves in various ways as we will inevitably do so to expend this surplus caloric energy. We'll be pursuing mates, or we'll be masturbating some way to just sort of offset that or unload that libidinal energy. And it's really just sort of this overall effect is just sort of this sort of they're just sort of vague ungroundedness, sort of miasmic trance-like state. I'm speaking of myself here. I can't speak of others, of course, other than what they've provided to me, which I filter through my own experiences, which is an important point, sort of a tangential one, but nonetheless, I'll go ahead anyway. It's basically that we can only really know our own experiences. We cannot understand really in any way whatsoever what another person experiences. It kind of sounds trite to say, but it is nonetheless the case. And it does sort of tie into this whole topic of the antinatalist argument and sort of devil's advocacy against it, right? Because it's a common rebuttal, I think, for the I've heard it in some of David Benatar's interviews, where he sort of makes the point that about optimism bias and how the average person sort of overestimates because of their optimism bias, their inherent optimism bias, that they will overestimate the quality of their own life. And the person who he's putting forth this claim to will always say that, like, well, surely the person's own internal evaluation of what their experience is means much more than an outside party's evaluation of what their experience is. And yeah, I mean, it's kind of valid, right? But we don't know what their experience is, but we can surely see from the outside that how we would feel if we were in such an experience. But yeah, I don't know. It's kind of neither here nor there. But lost my train of thought a little there. Yeah, so basically it was just that I was saying that I can't really speak for anyone else who was in my position, what their subjective overall experience is. But yeah, for me it is, as I stated, just this ungrounded, dreamlike sort of vagueness to the lived day to day, and just an aimlessness, right? This wandering through, which I don't know, some of you may know it's kind of like the literal translation of the Sanskrit word samsara. Yeah, wandering through. It's yeah, I've always liked that. Contemplating that, the literal translation of that, it seems very apt to the vagueness of my own experience. The overall ineffability of it, and the absurdity of being in such a state and willingly, deliberately bringing another life into it. So, I mean, I can only consider that my own parents were not they weren't in such a state when they conceived me. I can only, from what I've observed of other people, and of course, bearing in mind what I previously have stated about not being able to fully know another person's experience, I will nonetheless proceed. I can assume that they weren't in such a state as I've described for myself. I'm more inclined to think that they were in a very unthinking, uncritical, mostly unaware, sleeping, dead-like trance state. They weren't privy to any of what I've described for myself. They were seeing the world through a filter of just these tepid platitudes that society just waves about to justify all of their bullshit that they commit. And just going along to get along, that whole thing. Which is going to be the way for the vast majority of people. So the majority of people will never be persuaded by the antinatalist argument. They will, unless it is becomes the dominant narrative, just like slavery has been abolished because it's no longer considered acceptable within society. It's not that the majority of people came to the conclusion by their own volition that it was morally and ethically abhorrent to sort of like hold another human being captive and utilize them for their own, exclusively for their own benefit, with no consideration whatsoever of the other human beings' needs, wants, desires, or personal well-being. If it became societally acceptable again to have slaves, you can fucking well bet that the majority of people would have a slave. Sure, I'm not considering myself to be better than anyone else, but it is just the way that it is, that you and I, we see things in such a way, and these other people within society see things this other kind of way. As I've already stated, I am kind of a hard determinist, and so this is all very cause and effect, why we think such and such a way and why other people think such and such a way. No one's really at the helm of the ship in any meaningful way whatsoever. This is all just atoms bouncing around without any real intentionality behind them that we can at least ourselves harness. We think that we do. We think that we're at the helm of our own ship, but it's just in a very, very superficial way. But yeah, that's kind of a digression, I think. So for myself, seeing things as I do in such a way, there are no goals, there is no ambition. The ambition that I did have in my past was a product of my own ignorance, ultimately, as I see it now. It seems very cynical to say that, and but it just, perhaps it is, but the way, from my perspective, it just seems that the more conscious I became of my own motivations, the more my ambition and desire to accomplish anything diminished, because I just saw how corrupt it was. Maybe other people do have pure motivations. I don't know. It would be nice to think that that was the case, but yeah, I'm more inclined to think that it isn't. So I just sort of in this drifting state, and yeah, there's something else I was thinking about while I'm here was this whole this is connected, but it may seem as if it isn't immediately connected. I had some notes before I began, and this was part of it. So yeah, we'll just go ahead. I was thinking about this whole prepper mindset, you know, this very like right-wing dominated thing that's very prevalent, specifically within the USA. And it's just kind of very lamentable, because it really is, if these people really sort of went through a process of Socratic questioning of their own motivations and the ultimate utility of what it is that they're hoping to accomplish through their efforts, they would arrive at the futility of it, and that everything that they're doing isn't ultimately serving what they, in the innermost sanctums of their being, are, which, as I have put forth earlier on, it's basically an awareness strapped to this physical, psychophysical process writ large, which is reality as a whole. And yeah, so all that they're really doing is being a lackey to this this will to life. They're clinging to life for nothing more than the purpose of life perpetuating itself, which ultimately has no foreseeable value whatsoever. Because if they really played it out in their mind, they would see that, okay, say for instance there's a nuclear Armageddon, we have all our supplies or what have you in our bunker. We are one of the very few, 100, maybe 1,000 or so people to survive this event. And okay, we have to stay in our bunker for maybe a year to just allow the levels of radiation to deplete to such a degree that we are able to emerge out into the open environment once again. And then, okay, it's a nuclear winter, fuck all grows. It's bleak as all hell. What kind of quality of life is this? Other than just life for life's sake. It's really, I don't really see what's in this for them, other than, maybe I'm not seeing something here. I don't know, but I suppose it's sort of the reason why I had this in mind in the notes I made beforehand was that perhaps it's sort of the entire contrary to my own position and others who have sort of got to the core of this perspective. Because really I think that there's no need, if we are able to establish ourselves to such a degree within this ever so slight remove that has been established from this life thrust, we can see that there is really no value in clinging to it. It isn't going anywhere. It never has been going anywhere. And for an eternity, we were not, and within the relatively little time that is a human life, as it unfolds, 70, 80 years, 100 or so years maximum, it's not even the blink of an eye proportionally to this absolutely vast quantity of time that's preceded it, and the absolutely vast quantity of time that will most likely precede it. That is, if our this awareness does not continue, and I don't see any reason why it would. But I don't know. Maybe that's too bold a claim to make. I don't know. But yeah, let's say hypothetically that is the case. This is just a parabolic flight from vast nothingness to vast nothingness, and this existence is the anomalous thing. It is the this is the dream, and nothingness, non-existence is the life. Yeah, this is just a wandering through